Hey everyone, welcome back, or if you're just joining us, welcome to KSSP Podcast. I'm Spencer,
And I'm Katie.
and in this part of our food loss/waste series, we're just gonna be discussing some different things, whether policies or other, that could potentially be done to help reduce food loss and waste and help people. So, to start that off, tax breaks or write-offs for businesses who donate food that they would otherwise be throwing away could be to a homeless shelter or food bank, as long as it's a legitimate organization that helps everyone in the community and doesn't discriminate against those they help, is something that I would have recommended. But obviously, as we discussed, there are some policies that, a lot of policies actually, that do encourage corporations and businesses to donate food. But the biggest issue is the utilization of it is the hard part. Whether that's due to finding an organization who can take the food or being able to store the food that you were going to throw away to keep it from spoiling so that you could donate it. So I'd say, after kind of learning that, understanding that, a big area the government could potentially focus on is those aspects, whether that's encouraging private citizens to start up companies that would assist in those areas, or just creating the building/infrastructure themselves. Personally, I think it would be better paying the government, since something like this should not be for profit. But I know that there are quite a few people who would be frightened and think the government was taking over or heading towards communism. So I guess, to me, although I do feel it would potentially be better managed under the government, since it wouldn't have to be a business, it could more so be a program. I'm up for either, if it actually helps to reduce food waste and help feed people. Some other things under kind of just helping people know how to donate is help charities utilize the type of food waste restaurants generate. So that could be like produce trims, prepared foods. So just teaching them how to use those kind of scraps, I guess, and turn them into food. You could educate restaurants about how to donate, and then use technology to match supply and demand so that well-intentioned suppliers can find a home for their excess. And such as apps that are able to help nonprofits locate donors, helping get the excess food where it needs to be. And I know that there are some apps out there that are being developed, or maybe some are already developed, that have that goal in mind to help with that. So that's awesome to see. And then another thing is incentives for farmers to grow more useful crops and stop encouraging overproduction of crops that we already have too much of or don't really need. So for that, we could reduce federal crop insurance premium subsidies that drive over-reliance on corn, soybeans, wheat, and other annual commodity crops. They could utilize smarter fertilization application methods. So improved fertilization management systems with more precise rates and timing would decrease nitrogen pollution by approximately 10%. But farming systems that incorporate year-round plant cover to protect the soil can reduce nitrogen losses by a much greater percentage, between 42 and 85%. Producing incentives. So another thing they could do for like farmers is producing incentives and technical assistance to adopt various practices both within and at the edges of their fields, such as drainage water management, shallow drainage wetlands, bioreactors, and buffers. There's this method of strategically positioned prairie strips that I read an article about that also shows that it can help, kind of more so with reducing, I think it was the fertilizer runoff and stuff. But that's obviously still, we want that. And then increase funding and technical assistance to encourage on-farm conservation practices and ensure their adoption as a condition for receiving federal farm subsidies. So they could increase funding for existing conservation systems that are at this time currently underfunded. They could improve enforcement of conservation compliance and facilitate adoption of innovative systems such as prairie strips or any other systems too. So then another thing I thought of, mainly for just to try to help with obviously food insecurity, is kind of like Medicare for all. We could create like a food for all system. And I feel there would be a lot of people against that, but I just feel at the end of the day, if it is what helps American citizens the most, then it would be very beneficial.
Yeah, because providing free, healthy food for people in need would also increase our productivity as a country. People aren't going to be as productive if they're starving.
Yeah. And then another thing we should always do when talking about anything but food loss and waste, as well as looking at other countries and seeing what they're doing.
So I found some information, and it's from 2015, so there might have been changes to some of these policies, but this is information I found on a few different countries. So India enacted the National Food Security Act, and this allows people to have access to publicly financed or subsidized food. They will distribute coarse grains. Along with having a high nutritional value, coarse grains are highly resistant to extreme climate events such as floods and droughts. So over 31 million farmers grow these crops in India, and including these in the act will most likely stimulate production, helping with food security and climate adaptation. The farmers will increase their income by providing these crops to the government, and this will help address hunger, poverty, and climate change. So an organization in Kenya is helping farmers to produce more milk out of their cows with fewer greenhouse gas emissions. They do this by showing farmers how to improve their livestock feeding practices. This allows farmers to reduce their herds, which also make these smaller herds more productive than the previous larger herds. So this means that the cows are producing much more milk than they did before. So the cows receive a protein-rich feed for this to happen. In Colombia, they face extreme weather conditions, primarily floods and droughts, and these wipe out crops and render them useless. A knowledge exchange with farmers in Senegal has been helping these farmers to adapt to these rough conditions. The Senegalese farmers are indigenously knowledgeable when it comes to coping with long droughts. In some areas, the National Meteorological Agency is working with farmers to make their seasonal climate forecast more accurate and making these forecasts available via radio or SMS text. The Colombian government has been inspired to collaborate with national growers associations, the National Agriculture Research System, local experts, and non-governmental organizations. They are focused on improving the climate as well as site-specific information for farmers to incorporate into how they plan and strategize their farming. So almost 160,000 farmers now receive improved climate advice in Colombia. This allows them to better equip themselves to make decisions about what, when, and where they plant crops. The project aims to reach over 1.5 million farmers. And 25% of Colombian farmers are women, so giving them equitable access to this information helps improve issues of equality in farming as well. And then finally, in Nigeria, they recognize the 14.5 million smallholder farms will see their income decrease drastically when climate change or climate disasters occur. In response to this, the government has promised to insure their farmers against extreme weather events. The International Research Institute for Climate and Society and the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center are working with Nigeria on a 4-year plan to guide them towards reaching the goal of national smallholder coverage. So a similar program is already in place in India. Farmers are covered with index-based weather insurance, so when predetermined weather events occur, farmers are automatically paid. And these weather events include maintaining a certain temperature for a long period of time or reaching certain levels of rainfall. New rainfall triggers in India have been developed, and these triggers are specific to different crops and areas, and it's helped nearly 1 million farmers.
And then in France, in 2016 made it illegal for retailers to throw away food and incentivizes them to partner with NGOs to give food to those in need. The law comes with fines of up to 3,700 euros. In 2016 again, Italy also put a law in place that allows businesses to escape sanctions for donating food past the sell-by dates, as well as allowing for tax incentives for the food donated. And then South Korea is also at the forefront of mitigating waste. In 2013, the government made residents in Seoul pay in SEOUL pay for recycling depending on how much food waste they were creating. Another option for things that we can do is that food waste can be turned into renewable energy. Using a process called anaerobic digestion, food waste is treated at a special AED plant where it's broken down into a methane-rich biogas that is then used to create new energy. There are some companies that are already utilizing this method, and other countries are also figuring out ways to turn waste into renewable energy. For example, Costa Rica generates a lot of waste through coffee production and has been using technology to turn it into heat and power. South Korea has been a massive example of harnessing the power of food waste for that and fertilizer. Food waste can also be turned into livestock feed, and that benefits farmers by reducing feed costs and disposal costs. And then composting, that is the act of recycling food waste and other organic waste into a valuable fertilizer that can help enrich soil and plants by providing a lot of nutrients. Enriched soil has a lot of environmental benefits like capturing water to help mitigate droughts, recycling nutrients, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And there are 20 states, that might have changed by now, I guess, but at least 20 states have composting facilities.
So with composting, if something was alive at any point, it will compost, but not everything should be composted. You don't want to compost foods containing animal fats like meat, bones, cheese, grease, and oils. You don't want to compost plants infected with disease, invasive weeds, weeds that have gone to seed, or dog and cat feces.
Yeah. I don't think that would, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that would work with the feces anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's good though. I guess I wouldn't have known that, but that's good to know. So don't do that, guys. That's not good. It doesn't even, yeah, I don't know. Anyways, so another thing that we can look into with what we can do is how we as consumers can help mitigate food loss and waste. So some of those things are keeping an inventory of the food that you currently have in your house and then take it shopping. So basically make a list of what you have in your house, whatever your food you usually use or whatever you know you're going to need if you're making recipes, whatever. Write that down and then take that with you when you go shopping so that you don't overbuy, so that you don't think maybe I don't have this at home and then you buy it and then you do, leading to either you're not using it, one of them getting thrown away, or just, I don't know, mainly just the waste. You don't want to waste food. And then with that, you can plan your meals so that you make sure to utilize the food you buy. Buy ugly food and understand the difference between sell by, expiration, and just understand what all those dates mean. And then ensure that you properly store your food.
So with garlic, potatoes, onions, tomatoes, and cucumbers, you should never refrigerate those things. These items should be kept at room temperature. And separating foods that produce more ethylene gas from those that do not also reduces food spoilage. So the ripening of foods is promoted by ethylene. This can cause spoilage. Foods that produce this gas include peaches, pears, bananas, melons, and avocados.
Another thing we as consumers can do is repurpose certain ingredients into soups or other meals and compost. And then I have another little, so this is from the USDA. It's just food waste activities. So the USDA is doing its part to help make preventing food waste the first best option for farmers, businesses, organizations, and consumers. There's a large number of programs contributing to this objective, ranging from those supporting market and distributional efficiencies to those educating consumers. So I'm just going to briefly mention, so there's information on funding opportunities for projects and research. So the USDA's Rural Development has developed a guide to programs that could potentially provide funding for food loss and waste reduction projects. And then the USDA's National Institute of Agricultural has developed a guide to programs that provide funding for research on food loss and waste. So if you're planning on doing a food waste reduction project or research, the USDA has guides to look into funding for those. Consumer education about food loss and waste is something they're working on. Consumer education about food storage, on-farm storage. There's support for rural counties. Streamline procedures for donating wholesome misbranded meat and poultry products. Connected fresh produce importers with charitable institutions. Stimulate research and knowledge sharing about food loss and waste. Innovation. And yeah, so those are just, if you want to kind of read more in depth about all those, again, this is on the usda.gov/food waste/activities. Just some different ways that, again, just some more ways, because the more things that we can do to help prevent food waste, the better off we will be financially and just health, it would just be better for everyone.
Yeah. So, I guess just my final thought on all this. I just think that it's unacceptable that we're wasting so much food when people are starving. We could be, there's a lot of people that are food insecure. And yet all this food still goes to waste. And, I mean, I'm guilty of food waste. I think everybody in America is probably guilty of food waste. I try my best to waste as little as possible, though. It just upsets me that America has so many resources to provide food to the hungry, and yet we don't do much to address this. We don't do enough to address this issue. I mean, charity isn't enough. If charity was enough, charity's great and all, don't get me wrong, but it's not enough. Because if it were enough, we wouldn't have a problem with food insecurity. And I also just think a big contributing factor to why businesses don't donate their food is because it's cheaper to throw it away than to donate it. Because when you donate it, there's more labor involved and there's more transportation involved, and that comes out of the business's pocket. So that is probably something I think that should be addressed as well by your government and should be better regulated.
Yeah, they may just have to increase those tax breaks to account for that then, if they truly want the corporations to donate. I don't know what percent, I don't know how because they already have the breaks and the donations that if you donate, you will get reimbursed for it. So I guess but I do see, if they're not getting reimbursed for
enough,
the transportation or storage costs, they're only getting reimbursed for the food itself, then I can see why it is going to be cheaper. I mean, it's still almost unethical, in my opinion, that they're throwing away food that they know they could donate, even though it's going to cost them a little bit more out of their billion-dollar profits. But, whatever, fine. If they're not going to be good people, then yes, the government should kind of look into that and see how we can encourage these certain people to do the right thing.
Yeah. So we also just want to thank everyone who's been watching our stuff, liking and sharing it as well. We just want you to know we really do appreciate all of you.
Yes, and we are just excited to have you guys along on this journey with us as we see where KSSP podcast goes. We're just super excited. But you guys can always leave a comment below if you have topic ideas you want to hear us discuss in future episodes.
You can reach out on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and we occasionally Twitch live stream. So follow us there to be notified when we do.
And don't forget to give this video a like, as well as follow or subscribe to our other social media accounts and turn on notifications so that you get notified when our new content comes out. Otherwise, we will see you all tomorrow.